What's going on, guys? This is Foresight Capital, and today we're going to talk about ARK Invest's consistent buying of Palantir over the past month or month and a half. ARK Invest started with 0 shares of Palantir and has been buying nearly every single day since the middle of October in one of their premier ETFs that is up over 150% on the year and up over 40% every single year since its inception. So it's a great ETF to follow if you're looking for companies that have the potential for very outsized returns. Now, we've been following Palantir for a while on this channel, and personally as an investor, I'm bullish on the company. I'm always looking for ways to trade the stock and make quick returns, but I'm also holding some for the long term, and it looks like ARK Invest is doing just that. So we're going to dive right in, but all that I ask is that if this video brings you value, consider subscribing and giving a thumbs up so that it can reach more people across the platform. And if you're not familiar with ARK Invest, they are a large suite of ETFs that focus primarily on disruptive and innovative companies within the tech sector. So they were early investors in companies like Tesla, Snapchat, Square, LendingTree. So basically companies that have defined themselves as leaders within the tech industry and specifically within their own niche of stocks. If you're not familiar with ARK Invest still, you're probably familiar with their CEO and CIO, Kathy Wood, who is just an absolutely great investor, and she's really led ARK Invest to become the premier investors in technology ETFs. There's actually a website that follows ARK Invest trades, and I have a premium subscription to it. They're called lucidtracking.com, and they follow all of the ARK Invest ETFs, which, as I mentioned, there are quite a few of, and it gives you the buys, sells, the weighting of each of the stocks and the overall analyst opinions on those stocks, so that you can have a pretty good idea when ARK Invest is buying heavily a particular stock, that it's probably going to have some pretty great returns, at least in the short term, because they're very well known for their high returns that we'll dive into here in just a moment. So I'm going to pull up Palantir here, and it actually has a really nice graph built into the website, but what we're most interested in is the fund that is buying Palantir and the level of shares. So we can see that ARKW, one of their premier funds, has been buying Palantir almost every single day. We can see that this is up to December 11th, and as of December 11th, ARKW owned 1,229,000 shares of Palantir for over $33 million, and that's about 0.75% of the overall fund. But we can see every single month they've been adding and actually scaling into the position. So they bought 400,000 one week, they bought 750,000 the next week, and it seems like every single week they're buying more and more Palantir. Now, the market value of the shares has also gone up, so they're not necessarily buying more shares, they're just having to buy it at a higher price. As we can see, they were buying at $18.50 a share back in November, and they're now having to buy at $27, but they're still buying consistently more dollars worth and adding to the overall weighting of Palantir within this particular fund. We can see back here in October, they actually didn't own any Palantir. They started on October 15th with a very small position of 20,000 shares, and basically waited until November 13th to add over 1 million shares worth of Palantir. Now, if we pull the chart back up here, it's almost outside of the 20-day scope of this chart, but we can see that the price actually dipped early morning trading hours before the market opened on November 13th to about 1388, and it broke the long-term trend line that we have drawn here, which is indicated by this red uptrending line, and they actually purchased in that area near this blue support zone, and ever since then have been buying more consistently, and the stock has kind of been riding this long-term trend line upwards. So that was an absolutely insane buying day, and then since the middle of November they've added another 200,000 shares to the portfolio and have a pretty sizable position in ARKW. So I pulled up CNN Business here, and we can just take a look at some of the performance that this particular fund has, and we can see that over the past month they're up about 30%. about 43% over the past 3 months, and over 160% over the past year, which is insane returns because if you think about the market back in March during the beginning of the virus, it was down pretty substantially. So the market in total, the S&P, is not up anywhere close to 161%. If I remember correctly, it's somewhere in the 5 to 7% up on the year range, and this particular fund is up 162%. We can also see here that over the past 5 years, ARKW has averaged 48% annual returns, while their competitors are averaging 22.7%. Both of those are absolutely insane returns. By the way, the average return of the market is somewhere between 7 and 10%. So to see 48% returns consistently for a 5-year period is insane, but they're more than doubling up the returns of their competitors. And we can see here that their top holdings are Tesla, Roku, Square, Pinterest, so the usual suspects. And in fact, in order for Palantir to get towards the bottom of the top 10 holdings of ARKW, they'd need to about triple their total weighting of the stock within the fund. So we can see here that they'd probably need to have pretty close to 4 million shares in order to crack the top 10. Now, that's not necessarily their goal. I trust Cathie Wood's judgment and exactly the number of shares that they need to add on any given day, but it is promising that they're consistently buying this stock, because if we just look at the returns, 27% over the past month and 162% over the past year, they're obviously buying the right stocks at the right times, and they're buying a lot of them in order to achieve this sort of return, because it's almost impossible to have a 150% return in a year, especially in a year where the first quarter was pretty much a wash, if not the worst quarter in quite some time for the overall market. And to still be up this much, they're just nailing the overall positions that they're buying. So that kind of leads us back to the chart here. They started buying near this long-term support of about $14 per share and have been consistently adding it ever since that time. And that leads us to opening of the market next week. We're coming to a point where we're kind of closing the wedge between the long-term uptrend and the somewhat long-term support and resistance line of 2770. And I personally predict that we're going to break above this with some conviction, and I wouldn't be surprised to see us be testing all-time highs towards the latter half of the week. It may be mid-Tuesday or Wednesday before we truly realize the kind of tighter portion of this wedge, but if we get the same sort of performance like we did towards the tail end of last week before a big spike on Monday, we could possibly see a big spike on Monday again. And I wouldn't be surprised to see ARKW adding some more shares at that point, because once we break above this resistance line that we have, it's not unthinkable to see a big 5 to 8% run within one day. And ARKW is a long-term investing ETF, so they're probably not trading it like I am on this channel or like a lot of you that are watching are, but it's still a potential for them to get a very outsized return within one day. So I wouldn't be surprised to see them buying near these levels in anticipation of the potential run-up that happens once we break this long-term resistance. So I'm going to kind of keep following their adding or selling of Palantir and ARKW over the next couple of trading days. Let me know if you kind of want to follow up, if you want me to follow up on this, or if you're more interested in just the charting side, leave that down in the comments below. But just kind of wanted to give my insights there. Definitely interesting how substantial of a size that they've been adding over the past couple of weeks. So I'm very curious to see how the stock plays out and helps them achieve these absolutely insane returns that they've been getting. So thanks for stopping by. Don't forget to subscribe if this video brought you value, or if you want to see more videos on Palantir or other deep dives into stocks in the future. Thanks for stopping by, and catch you in the next one.